Guess who's back? Back again. It's Jake and Kaz. Tell your friends. Now, this is a special pre-NFL draft edition of the Gangs All Here podcast coming up. And also, the breaking news that came out after we recorded the show. The second I published the show, the news happened. Plans have now changed. So we'll add on the beginning of the show a little bit of reaction to Zach Wilson. He has been traded finally from the New York Jets to the Denver Broncos. I'll react to the trade in a second, and then Kaz will come in and join me to talk Jets offseason so far and everything NFL draft. Who do the Jets take with the 10th pick? Do they trade up? Do they stay put? Do they trade back? What do they do the rest of the draft? Kaz and I will recap the offseason, talk draft, and I'll react to Zach Wilson finally being traded. It's coming up next on Gangs All Here from the New York Post. All right, welcome back to Gangs All Here, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. That whole intro and Brian Costello are coming on in just a second, but I had to hop on here to open up the return of Gangs All Here. We've been away a few months with the breaking news. Zach Wilson has been traded. Now, before when we were recording, we were talking about how is he still on the roster? Will it get done? Does he go to camp with the Jets? And legit, within the same minute, Tom Pelissero and NFL Network and NFL reporting that Zach Wilson gets traded is the second I published the podcast. So now we react. I'll react. In the words of Sister Act, one of my favorite movies, Sister Act 2, sing it with me, Jets fans. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. This is a happy day in Jets land. The New York Jets trading 2021 first round pick, number 2 overall, Zach Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos. So Russell Wilson gone from Denver. Zach Wilson is in Denver. It is reportedly an exchange of late round picks. Denver will receive a 7th round pick, number 256, from the Jets, while the Jets get a 6th round pick, number 203 in return. So it is a pick swap between the Jets and Broncos, and the teams will divide his guaranteed camp roster bonus. So a little bit of a split. Denver pays some of the money. Jets pay some of the money. They swap picks. Jets get a 6th. Denver takes one of the Jets' 7. The Jets had back-to-back picks in the 7th round. Denver will take one of them. An absolute no-brainer for the Jets. Zach Wilson had to be off this roster. I'm not going to question him as a person, his family, question any of that, but he stunk in a Jets uniform. Plain and simple, Zach Wilson was an atrocious quarterback in a Jets uniform. He had his moments, he had his plays, he had his games here and there, but overall, the Jets have been a terrible football team with him at quarterback, period. End of story. The last 3 seasons, you can call him arguably, at least in the top 5 of worst picks in the history of the Jets franchise. When you talk about first round, when you talk about that high of a pick in the 2nd pick, and it being a quarterback, you can argue that he was the worst pick in the history of the franchise. Of course, there were other rounds and other picks that sucked, and you could give me a long list. We'll be here for days if we go through picks that stunk with the New York Jets. But Zach Wilson came here and was gifted. They put it on a silver platter, the starting job for him for 2 years. Then they get Aaron Rodgers. He gets hurt, 4 snaps in, and he's thrusted into the starting role. That wasn't expected. So you feel bad for him in a sense, but you're still an NFL quarterback. You got to get the job done, and he did not. And we know all the excuses, the offensive line, not enough talent around him, the coaching staff wasn't good, and I'm not going to deny any of that, but it doesn't really excuse him stinking very badly for 3 years. Zach Wilson, 34 games in a Jets uniform, 23 touchdowns, 25 interceptions, a 57% completion percentage. He just wasn't good. He turned the ball over. He fumbled the ball. He got sacked almost more than anyone in the league. He just did not control the football. He wasn't successful throwing the football. And now he's going to the Denver Broncos. And I'll say this, wish him all the luck in Denver, except when they ever play the Jets. Wish him all the luck. I don't see him leading the Broncos to playoffs and Super Bowls, but you wish him the luck in Denver. Go there and maybe get a chance to play or at least be a backup. I'm sure he'll get a shot to be a backup. I don't know about starter. We'll see. But, you hope he does just fine out in Denver. But for here, it was a very forgettable 3 years. Nightmares every week watching this guy play quarterback. I don't have to hear from the Zach Wilson truthers. I don't have to hear his name. He is off the roster. It's Aaron Rodgers, it's Tyrod Taylor, and it's either a quarterback they draft or someone else as third string. This was a black cloud in some sense over the Jets, and it's over now. He's going to Denver, and all the expectations he had here, this is great for him. He gets a change of scenery, a different, location, less pressure in Denver than New York, of course. And you hope he does well and take advantage. He doesn't have that spotlight of being the number 2 overall pick now. Now he's just a backup or third string quarterback for the Denver Broncos. It's a whole different story for Zach Wilson, and he could write a new story. He could write chapter 2 of his own football journey in Denver, and you hope he does well. But it's over for the Jets. Thank you, Lord. And listen, if Aaron Rodgers get hurt, at least you have Tyrod Taylor, and then you get another quarterback. But the Zach Wilson chapter, these 3 tumultuous seasons of him at quarterback after being picked number 2, the pick was bad, the pick was wrong, it was a failure. But now, it's over, Jets fans. Rejoice. Goodbye, Zach Wilson. Good luck in Denver. And we'll never see you in a Jets uniform ever again. Thank you. Now, enjoy me and Brian Costello on a new episode of Gangs All Here. Next. Welcome back to Gangs All Here, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. Jake Brown here, Brian Costello there. Yes, I'm fully aware we've missed every single inch of Jets information this offseason. Don't blame me. Blame the people higher up above me. That's not my choice. But I'll rest my case because they pay my rent. So we are back, and this is the pre-draft show. We're here just in time, Kaz. I'm sure you are mock drafted out at this point. How have your last 3 months of the offseason been?
Only 3 months? It's been good. Been good. It's been, a relatively quiet offseason for the Jets, I'd say, by Jets standards, right? No coaching change, no GM change, no quarterback change. So usually we've been getting one of those in recent years. So it's been a pretty quiet offseason.
It's my kind of offseason, Kaz, when the biggest news of the offseason might be a sandwich, a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich. I mean, that story, we've talked about how good the Jets social media does. And listen, it's Mike Williams. He's coming off an injury. He might suck. He might not come back healthy. But I thought that's been the highlight of my offseason was NYJ Matt sending that sandwich, him actually receiving it, eating it. And obviously it was the 12 million talking and not the sandwich. But I think it's a nice gesture, and it was a good job of the social media team. I know we're months behind, but it was a cool story.
Okay.
You don't agree? You weren't a fan of the sandwich story?
No, I think if you're a serious organization, right, any serious organization wouldn't have done that. I think the Jets whine about how they're covered and their punchline, no one takes them seriously, and then they go and do that. So that was my opinion.
That's fair. Have you ever had that diner? Was it Morristown Diner?
I don't think I've ever been to the Morristown Diner. I've been to many diners around Morristown, but I don't think I've ever been there. So I've had plenty of Taylor. I don't get the egg. I'm not an egg guy. I get a lot of Taylor ham and cheeses though. That's a
never had that.
Jersey staple. It's a Jersey staple, Jake. Yeah. So
I know that is, here we're a bacon, egg, and cheese here in New York. So yeah. I'm newer. I'm gonna have to try that at some point this off season.
Yeah, if you're ever in Jersey, yeah. And if it's North Jersey, it's Taylor ham. South Jersey, it's pork roll.
Yes, pork roll I hear all about. I didn't realize there's different sides of the state.
It's like Kleenex and tissues. Taylor ham is a brand. Pork roll is what it actually is. So it's do you say frisbee or do you say flying disc? It's like that, right? A frisbee is a brand of a flying disc. So
I don't think I processed that it's the same thing. A pork roll is
Taylor ham is Taylor ham is a brand of pork roll. But pretty much everyone in North Jersey calls it Taylor ham, similar to like I said, frisbee is my best example. Most people don't call it a flying disc. but Frisbee is a brand.
Yeah. There's people listening to this like,
Whammo.
Jake, you're an idiot not knowing. I don't think I knew that it was the same thing. Pork roll here. I figured they were different sandwiches, but it's one sandwich.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of times of like where the delineation is in Jersey, you know, where's the line of North Jersey, South Jersey? Does Central Jersey exist? We can start talking about all this Jersey stuff, Jake, if you really want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's been more exciting the last few weeks in Jets land. I mean, the last real piece of news is re-signing Ashton Davis and Haason Reddick, which was a tremendous trade, I thought. Reddick has been a consistent player last 2 years, hasn't missed a game. Of 50 and a half sacks the last 4 years, pretty consistent for a third-round pick, replaces Bryce Huff. That seemed like a no-brainer, right, guys?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good trade. You're giving up a future pick, and I thought the worst part of the Jets offseason, besides the social media team celebrating a Taylor ham and egg and cheese, was them letting Bryce Huff go to Philadelphia. I think if you're looking at this whole offseason, that's a bad move. Like you had an ascending pass rush, ascending player at a premium position like pass rusher, and you let him walk. That's tough to swallow. But I think Reddick is a pretty nice pivot. Obviously, he's older. This is short term. He will be probably better than Bryce Huff in 2024. The question is, what does 2025, 2026 look like? Is Bryce Huff, I think he's 25, if I'm not mistaken. So is he going like this? Reddick is probably about to hit the down part of his career. Probably I don't think this year, but I think it's coming, before Bryce Huff, obviously. So I thought it was a good pivot by Joe Douglas. And yeah, you can't argue with the compensation they gave up. And we'll see. I thought he would probably get a contract from the Jets. We'll see if they still do that. They're going to have to make some moves. They don't have much cap space right now.
Yeah, Huff turned 3 years 45 was Reddick's contract, so similar AAV. Huff just turned 26 last week, so
26. Okay,
they're 3 years off from each other, and Reddick will turn.
I think Reddick turns 30 in the fall, right?
Yep.
During the season, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he'll be 30. It looks like September, so a couple years apart for the immediate future, and that's what the Jets are playing for here. Well, this year, next year, however long Aaron Rodgers wants to last. However many more, random podcasts he go on that I've never heard of that have intriguing beliefs of their own. It seems like every week there's a new one that you never heard of. There's some guy who has a big following I've never heard of.
Maybe we just need to change it to conspiracies all here for a week, Jake. And come on.
I was going to say that, but I'm glad you did. Every conspiracy podcast in America. We got to talk to the legal team about our title change, and we might be able to get him on maybe a weekly spot. Maybe get a little promo
in there.
He
did that early in his career. He did it. I think it was a radio spot at that time, but pre-podcast. He used to do something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was close with Shine, right? Shine loves him. Adam Shine is his guy.
Shine show a lot. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Shine has any conspiracy beliefs. Not that I've heard from him, but we'll talk about a name change next season if we are back here, and I hope we are, because this is gearing up for a fun year. The Jets are the consistent offseason Super Bowl champions. Unfortunately, It hasn't translated into the season just yet.
A lot of offseason banners, Jake.
We'll go quick here on the offensive line since we haven't talked about it. I like what Joe Douglas has done. I think the Tyron Smith deal is good because of the incentives and how many games he plays. And we know he's never gets through a whole season. He usually misses at least 5 or 6 games. I think the contract plays out on that. Morgan Moses, John Simpson. They brought in some nice veterans. They revamped this offensive line. And it's not an all-world offensive line, but you feel a lot better about it than you did going into the offseason.
I thought it was the best he could do, Jake. Right? When you sat down in February, I looked at the tackles that were available. Specifically tackle. The market was not good. The free agent market was weak. And I don't think you wanted to just roll the dice and wait till the draft to and not address the position. So I thought there's high risk here, right? Injury wise, age wise, they're both 33 years old. Morgan Moses had pec surgery in February or January, February. Obviously, Tyron Smith's missed a lot of games the last 4 years. So there's a lot of risk here. But if they can play, they're good football players, and they're upgrades from what they had. So I think it was worth the risk. And then if they can add some more in the draft, I think that would be good too. Behind them. And Simpson's an interesting guy. He really didn't do very well at the Raiders for 3 years, and then he did very well with the Ravens last year. So we'll see if they've got somebody who kind of figured it out and has clicked. And I talked to some people in Baltimore, and they said like his confidence was low when he got there, but now he has a lot more confidence and he's playing well. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of AVT coming back from injury is a big part of that offensive line. And it's going to be, can they Jets get some injury luck for once on the offensive line? Because it feels like every year they're going through 13, 14, 15 guys on the offensive line, and no team can survive that. So the Jets need some luck this year with injuries.
And I got to survive that garbage MetLife Stadium turf. Still no grass. Come on down to the World Cup. Take the Jersey Transit. Have fun with that. Enjoy your trip to MetLife Stadium. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, good for them to get the World Cup there, but my goodness. Hopefully one day it's at the new stadium next to Citi Field a few years away. Looking forward to that. But yeah, we'll see if
they soccer. We're talking about soccer.
Well, the World Cup's coming to MetLife, so I'm hoping Messi or whoever isn't tear their ACL on this. I'm sure it'll be fixed by
grass.
then.
It's grass for the World Cup. It has to be for soccer. It has to be grass, but that they can do grass like for a short period of time. The problem at MetLife is doing grass that can hold up for the entire year and be good in December and January, with how much use it gets with the Giants and Jets and high school football there. There's not really concerts after Labor Day there, but it's they're having a tough time figuring out how to make it work later in the year there.
Well, we'll see if the Jets O-line holds up. I do like that two of those guys have some cohesion playing together in Baltimore. I think that helps on the O-line. I know they're on opposite sides, but I think that helps two of those guys know each other well. You got an all-pro and Smith, so it looks good. But you're right. They got to draft more, and they need to add some more depth on that O-line because there will be injuries. They're not all going to hold up. That's just the NFL. That's just the history of the Jets, is that all five of those guys will not stay healthy for the entire season. So, that leads us into the draft. We don't need to address, but it is important. Thanks, Greg Zuerlein, Thomas Morstead for coming back. Morstead changing your number, a couple of number changes. MVPs on the Jets special teams needed. Solomon Thomas, Mr. Musical, coming back. Glad to hear him coming back. Chuck Clark coming back. Kenny Aboa. So Jets bringing back some reinforcements. But now Thursday, we've heard every mock in the book. How many have you done in total? Like,
3.
Have you only done 3?
I do 4. Yeah, I do 4 right before the draft. That's it. Yeah, my last one will be in Wednesday's post.
Yes, so check that out on Wednesday in the post and nypost.com. But I've seen every variation. I've seen trade downs. I've seen trade ups. I've seen staying. I've seen going. I mean, the month of April, that's all it is, because the free agency period by the end of March is pretty much over with. And then April, it is all draft talk. And I just want Thursday, Friday, Saturday get over with, and we'll talk about it next Monday. But the 10th pick in the NFL draft, let's start, Kaz, first with what, in your mind, are the biggest positions of need for the Jets heading into the draft?
Yeah, I think everyone knows at this point, right? It's the question is, do you want protection on the offensive line, or do you want playmakers for Aaron Rodgers? That's the question, and that's what Joe Douglas and the Jets have to answer. When I say playmakers, I include Brock Bowers, who's not a traditional tight end. He's a pass catcher, so he'll be out there. If any of the top 3 receivers, Marvin Harris, I don't think Marvin Harris is getting to 10, but Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors, if one of them slips to 10, obviously they're in play. And then any of the top offensive linemen, I think, like we talked about, they're going to need reinforcements behind those guys. Even if you're not expecting them to be a day one starter, there's a good argument to be made for offensive line at that position.
Yeah, like we said, there will be injuries, need some depth. But all right, let's just go through it then. 10th pick here. Now, there's been talks, trades, like I said. Do they trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr.? That is one talk. Do they trade down and get one of the other offensive linemen later in the first round, whether it's like you had a mock of them going to 20 to the Steelers? Do they do that and get an offensive lineman? There are a few offensive linemen there. They could still get a good one. Are you more team trade, or are you more team stay? What do you do?
I would stay and take a player, but I do think it depends on how this goes. And the key part we don't know is what the Jets think of all these players, right? So if the receivers are gone, let's say receivers are gone, Bowers is gone, um, and that would probably mean one offensive lineman is gone, right? Joe Walt, let's say. Now do you go, okay, we like these three offensive linemen, but about the same, or we like Thomas from LSU, the next receiver, but we think we can get him if we move back to 14 or 15. Like I think then you trade back. The big part of this, Jake, is they don't have a second round pick because of they traded it for Aaron Rodgers. Do they try to recruit a second round pick? And I think it depends. But if somehow a Dunze is sitting there at 10, he falls down, I think you run up and take him.
Mm,
So I wouldn't I wouldn't mess around unless you feel like, okay, these guys are all kind of equal on our board. We can move back a few spots and get one of them. So it's really, it's dictated by when you're at 10, it's dictated by those first nine. What happens there? Trading up, I don't think Marvin Harris is the only one I think you can make an argument for trading up.
mm,
And you'd be talking about like moving up. I guess what if the Cardinals don't take him at 4? Like if they trade out, like would you move up to 5? I don't know if they have the ammo, Jake. They don't have a second round pick.
mm.
So how are they getting up to 5? You'd have to show me how you're getting up to 5. Are you giving up first round pick next year? I probably wouldn't do that. Um, because I mean, there's some argument people argue that Neighbors is better than Harrison too. So it
Mhm.
depends on what the Jets really think of them. But I think trade up is the least likely scenario in my mind.
So if they stay, it seems like you're in either the O'Dunes camp or um, offensive lineman, one of the two. If they're
Or
available.
Bowers. I've
Okay.
come around on Bowers. I think you can take him too. Yeah, I lean offensive line, Jake. That's my mindset. I don't know if you saw the video of Harbaugh of Jim Harbaugh. I think it was at the owners meeting talking about offensive linemen and how they're the only players on the field that affect every position. So like, they make the quarterback better. They
Mhm.
protect him. Receivers can get open if they're blocking. Running backs look better if they're blocking. And the defense looks better if the offense is moving the ball because of the offensive line. And there's no other position on the field that influences that much. And I love that. I was like, it was a perfect summation of the offensive line. So I'd be thinking offensive line. That being said, listening to Woody Johnson at the NFL Honors back in February and then at the owners' meetings in March, he keeps going offense, offense, offense. I don't think when an owner goes offense, 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 they're talking about tackle. I think they are talking about people who score touchdowns. And I think Woody is very much tired of watching his team play terrible offense, which it's been for a very long time now. And yeah, I think he wants a playmaker. So I think he's going to tip the scales. I'm not reporting this, please. Do not aggregate this. This is my opinion, to be clear. I just reading the tea leaves. I think Woody wants a playmaker, so I think that's the way the Jets are going to pick, and we'll see who's available there.
Did you hear Woody a little extra loud at the owners' meetings? Was he shouting to any particular coach? Remember his
With
tweet?
what?
He shot down the
Oh,
argument he had with Salah. That
no, I did not see him arguing with anybody.
heard him yelling a little bit loud. Yeah, listen, I agree. Do 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 with the 10th pick in the NFL draft. Meaningless GM Jake Brown selects tight end Brock Bowers. I think one, it is a pick that will excite the fans as a playmaker always does. Two, I think it's a pick that's going to excite the quarterback. I love Tyler Conklin, and I think Jeremy Rucker could be something, but Rucker hasn't got that chance yet. They haven't given him that chance. And I think having Bowers on one side, Conklin on the other, two tight end sets with Mike Williams, with Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers is out there salivating. And if he gets hurt, Tyrod Taylor is out there salivating. And all the options he has, of course, along with Brees Hall in the backfield. And in a team that's built to win this year, next year, year after, I think having extra playmakers is essential. And of course, offensive line is essential, but it's not a lock that pick is going to start in his first year. They probably won't actually with who they have now.
They would start at some point this year. They wouldn't start week 1, but yes,
Yeah.
there's going to be injuries. Like if you can take a player who's like a 4 position player, like Fatanu from Washington is kind of that guy. I think Fuaga might be that guy from Oregon State. You put him at guard, put him at tackle. Somebody's gonna get hurt, Jake. Right? That's just
Mhm.
the way it works in the NFL. Very few teams have the same offensive line for 17 games. They will play, but yeah, they wouldn't walk in the door as a day one starter. The Bowers pick to me, I think will be divisive with Jets fans. I think there'll be a lot of people who will not be happy that they took a tight end because I think there's arguments. How many first round tight ends are successful? There's a lot of great tight ends in the NFL that are drafted in the second round or later. Laporta was last year, second round. Kelsey was, not a first round pick. Kyle Pitts he had a good rookie year. He hasn't really played well since then. You go back to OJ Howard. Like it has not been a successful path for first round picks usually. And how old are you, Jake, again?
How old am I now? 33.
33. So you're so what, 91? When we were
91,
91?
yeah. February
91?
91.
Yeah, so you're a little young to remember Johnny Mitchell and Kyle Brady, but there's many
Mhm.
listeners that we have right now who remember when the Jets took Johnny Mitchell in the first round and Kyle Brady in the first round. And Kyle Brady had a long career, but the Jets could have drafted Warren Sapp, and they didn't. They took Kyle Brady, and he really didn't do much with the Jets. He went to Jacksonville, had some success, and Johnny Mitchell had some good games, but never really put it together. So there's scars with tight ends for Jets fans. Not that that should influence this pick at all, but I'm just saying I do think that this pick will be divisive amongst Jets fans if they take Bowers.
There is one tight end in the Jets' first round that they have picked that did have success.
Yeah, but not long, Jake. I love Dustin, but it was like 3 years, right? He was here for, was it 5 years? He was here 4 years. He was here
I
08
think
to
so.
9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. And yeah, and Dustin was a nice player. He wasn't, you know,
He wasn't an all pro, but he had
he's not
some
an all.
years on a winning Jets team. And
Yeah.
we're looking for
I
the
mean,
first playoff team since then. Before Brian Costello was the full-time Jets beat writer, was this guy at tight
Dustin was
end.
a good player. Dustin was a good player, and he was one of Sanchez's favorites for sure.
Do I
But
got to write Bowers over here? Would he be 81? What do the Jets have an 81 right now? I think they do. Is Anunwa? No, not Anunwa. Yaboa, sorry. Anunwa, Yaboa. I got old Jets on my mind.
I can't remember.
Look at that.
I'm
Dustin
not
Keller.
numbers right now.
For the end of this episode, we'll have Dustin Keller showing as the next great Jets tight end. And listen, Tyler Conklin's probably still the starter, I would imagine. How does that work? I guess Conklin's
Yeah, well,
probably starting.
this part was interesting. So we had Joe Douglas press conference Friday, right? And these pre-draft press conferences are usually pretty useless, but I thought it was interesting. I asked Joe about this kind of conversation of drafting a player who might not have a path to start immediately versus drafting a guy who is going to be a starter. And he's done both in his time with the Jets, right? Like Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson did not really have clear paths to being starters as rookies. I think everyone else he's drafted, you pretty much saw how they were going to be a starter as a rookie. But I didn't ask about positions. I didn't say anything. He brought up tight end room immediately. And he was like, Conklin and Ruckert are not just going to let someone walk in the door here and be a starter. Like they're warriors. They're going to fight for their jobs. And so I was like, huh. Like he kind of brought the tight end position up a few times unsolicited. So I thought that was interesting. And obviously it's, Bowers is in play here because they're thinking about it. And I thought that was a message to Conklin and Ruckert of like, hey, even if we draft this guy, he's not going to walk in the door as a starter. But different teams take different, like if different coaching staffs are taking different approaches with that, Jake. I remember when Jamal Adams was drafted and Todd Bowles like didn't make him the starter right away, and it was like, this is a joke. The guy's the starter, but then like when Zach was drafted, they made him the starter immediately, and there was no competition. And I thought that was a joke. So it's kind of a fine line. Try to make them earn it a little bit, but I think Bowers will find his way on the field a lot this year if he's drafted by the Jets.
I already see it with the Jets social media team. It's Kenny Powers and Brock Bowers. Powers and Bowers. It'll be one Jets drive. I'm calling it now. Danny McBride, he will be at Jets camp along with whoever else shows up. No Hard Knocks this year, so maybe less celebrity appearances without the cameras following everyone around. Kenny Powers, Brock Bowers. So it sounds like you're leaning offensive line, but that's probably the
Well,
smart.
it's
The
true.
smartest pick is probably offensive line. Like if we take everything else
If
out.
you're asking me what Brian Costello would do as general manager, I would take an offensive lineman, right?
Mhm.
If you're asking me what I think the Jets are going to do, I think it's going to be a pass catcher, whether that's Bowers or one of the other guys that if they fall down to 10.
I'm
Uh,
curious if they trade up for Harrison, what it would take with them not. Do they trade a second? They have a second next year. I don't know if it would be a second next
I
year
think it'd be a lot to go up
or.
to 5. Now, if you're talking 8, right? That's a little different. That's two
Mhm.
spots. That's not going to cost you a lot. I could see that if they feel like they need to jump the Bears to get somebody at 8 with it's the Falcons there. I could see that. Falcons are probably going to be looking to they could be looking to deal there. I think they're leaning defense from what I've seen in mock drafts and stuff. And there's not going to be a defensive player off the board probably till then. So if they could move back 2 spots and probably get a good defensive player. So that one will cost you less to move up to 8, but I don't think you get Marvin Harrison at 8.
Mhm.
That I think would be a Dunze or Bowers, or if they feel like there's our neighbors, if he made it there, or somebody like that. But that one's a lot more realistic to me than 5.
Yeah,
5, I think, would be expensive, Jake, to move up 5 spots and into the top 5. I think that's going to cost you a lot.
I agree. But if it were to happen, I think Jets Nation would absolutely lose their minds if you have Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. It would just be insane
Yeah, I
in the
don't think
streets of
Joe
New York.
Douglas can go by what Jets Nation is going to lose their minds over them. I think he's
Yeah,
got.
he'd probably lose his job if he went by Jets
You're right.
Nation
Yeah. Yep. If you're
most of the
thinking
time.
about the fans, you're going to be sitting with them. That's the old saying,
Yep.
So
I think offensive line is the smart pick. I'm not smart, so I go Brock Bowers. And gun to my head now, if I had to guess, I think they're going to trade down. I think they will trade down and get one of the other offensive linemen. I think that's a logical move considering they don't have a second round pick. Get yourself another pick, get some more depth, get that receiver. If you get maybe a second round pick, then you get one of the receivers. This is a receiver deep draft, right?
it is. I just think Jake with trading back. I think where they're at now, like right, this is win now,
Mhm.
clearly, right? So I don't know. I get you can move back and get a good player, but if there's someone you like at 10, just take them and just get more talent in your building. To me, so but it could happen. Like I said, it's going to be depends on how the board falls. Do all these quarterbacks get taken that everyone's saying? Does that happen? Because that pushes talent out the board. But yeah, from the draft experts say that this is a deep receiver, deep offensive line draft. So it sets up well for the Jets in terms of getting another player in the third round who could help at one of those positions, whatever they don't address in the first round.
Yeah, one of your mocks, you have Roman Wilson, receiver out of Michigan.
Yeah,
The
I think
Jets
that was one
taking.
where I traded and I had more picks. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, so they could always get the receiver later, but elite tight ends are harder to get later. So Brock Bowers may
There's
be
really
that
only
guy.
one elite tight end in this draft.
Mhm.
He's it. The rest of them are, there's a big drop off. So I don't think tight end's really a position of need for the Jets. Like we said, I like Conklin Ruckert is a developing player. Bowers is more of just an offensive weapon than like, oh, we need a tight end. It's just like, all right, here's another target for Aaron. And he can play in the slot a lot. There's a lot of things you can do with him moving around the formation. I don't know if he can run a reverse though, Jake. Like I
I,
know you're.
I think he can because he had
Yeah.
9 rushes, 109 yards, 3 rushing
All
touchdowns
right.
last
Well, I
year.
think they've lined him up in the backfield at times.
Yeah.
From
Oh, 2 years ago, excuse me. He had
yeah.
9 for 109. He only had 6 for 28. But
So
2 years
maybe for
ago,
a reverse for you.
yes, automatic pick. You got Jake's pick. If you can lay down a bunt, the Mets will draft you, and I will draft you. If you can run a reverse, I'll draft you. But yeah, he's got some ability. He's got some speed. 6'4", 240. That's what I like about him too. He's basically Jake Brown frame. I mean, I'm 6'3", 6'4" with a good pair of shoes on, and I'm about 240 after all the Citi Field, the Yankee Stadium food I've been eating the last few
You can
weeks.
play tight end for the Jets.
The problem is running. I was running to the train yesterday to make the Rangers game because the trains are messed up. My headphone popped out, and the time I got to the train, I was a river, sweating. I needed oxygen, and I ran 2 blocks. That's it. So anything stamina. I need to hit the gym. I've had the Jets off season, but have yet to get on a gym routine. So we're gonna get that going here after the draft. Diet starts
There you go.
tomorrow is my favorite line, and usually it never does. Even if I've been doing HelloFresh, but the stadium foods have been killing me. But check out my YouTube, Jake Brown Radio. I've been doing some food reviews at the stadiums there. But Brock Bowers will be my pick. Smart pick. OL offensive line. But we'll see what the Jets do. And, I've had enough of mock talks and all this. I just wanted to get over with. And next Monday, we will review the draft and what the Jets do. And we'll see what this roster looks like in 1 week for the potential AFC East favorite, New York Jets, as the Buffalo Bills are a sinking ship. What do you think about that Stephon Diggs trade and everything the Bills are doing? Because they've had a terrible offseason.
I thought Stephon Diggs must be a really, really, really tough player to deal with, right? Because that's the only explanation for trading him. Is just you're tired of dealing with him. And obviously, there's been a lot of smoke there about that the last few years of him not being happy and glad he basically did this in Minnesota too, right? Before that trade. So he must be a very tough player to deal with because, yeah, their receivers right now are not good. So they still have a great quarterback. I think they have a good coach, a good GM. So they'll put a team together, but they're definitely weaker than they were. So we'll see if the Dolphins or the Jets can catch them now.
The division is up for grabs. All right, we'll be back next Monday to recap the 2024 NFL Draft. Where do you watch the draft? Are you at the facility? Where do you go?
Yeah, yep, in the facility. Yeah, because then Joe and Robert will come down to talk to us, and we get to pick on a conference call. We're also doing. I think we're doing a live stream, Jake, on NYPost.com. I'll be on there as the Jets are on the clock, and I'll stay for like 1 or 2 minutes after they make the pick.
Yes, I think I might be on that as well. I've been told to potentially stay home that night, although it's we got some playoff basketball that night, but it is the draft. So yeah, look out for that live stream. Dexter Henry will be hosting. You'll be on. I think it'll be on nypost.com or YouTube. I think it's on YouTube, NY Post Sports YouTube. And you can watch us there as well. All right.
What's the best food you ate at Citi Field, Jake, before we go?
So I could do a whole show on this.
I'll do an hour. Just give me the best food. If I go with my kids to a game at Citi Field, what do I need to buy?
Well, first off, if you ask anyone about food, I am the #1 source for Citi Field food in the United States of America. I will take that title and accept it. I interviewed her while eating it. Mel's Butcher Box. Shout out to Mel. Promenade behind home plate. It is an award-winning burger. I have the materials here because I just did a review.
Promenade's the fancy they say upper deck now, right?
Yeah, I'm too bougie. I don't sit up there, but I went up there for the burger.
Is it in the that like area where they have all the different food stands?
Yeah, it's at the Pat LaFrida stand up top. Yeah. So it's the Pat LaFrida stand. It is arguably the best burger I've ever had in my life, and I've had a lot of burgers. Here it is. It's the award-winning burger. Mel's Butcher Box. 2 Pat LaFrida burger patties, maple bourbon bacon jam, melted cheddar cheese, crispy seasoned shallots on a toasted Martin's potato bun. It is truly remarkable. That's the burger. It is unbelievable. I also had the Juicy Lucy, which is the Adam Richmond burger, which was also good, but that is 2 Pat LaFrida beef patties with American cheese folded in, topped with sauteed onions on a Martin's potato roll. That was good. But the Mel's Butcher Box blew it away.
Juicy Lucy's a Minnesota thing.
Is it?
It's a huge thing in like Minneapolis. Yeah, the Juicy Lucy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was created by Adam Richmond, but Mel's Butcher Box Promenade was probably my new favorite food, so I highly recommend getting that. I also did have, of course, in Jake Brown fashion, the garlic bread chicken parmero, which was also good. That they have behind 102, section 102 on field level, and in the Clover Club. They renamed the clubs. The Delta Club is the Clover Club, and the Clover Club is now the Delta Club. So, moving forward, they switched the names. I don't know why, sponsorship reasons. But the fancier club is now called Delta, the one with the free food. But even I have trouble getting in there these days. So that is for the rich folks.
Were you there for the Gooden ceremony?
I was, yes. Yes, Doc appeared on Amazing But True more times than any other guest. So happy for Doc. He was our most frequent guest. Yeah. Although the show's over now. But
I'd say probably the most memorable story of my career, Jake, is I interviewed Doc when he was in prison.
I remember you told me this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in 2006.
How crazy was that? Like, did you eat any of the prison food?
Like, you're a lot, you're younger than me. So I was 8 years old in 1984. And I basically learned baseball watching like the Mets teams then and
And
Doc.
you were a Mets fan growing up, right? Or
I
no?
was because it mainly like right because I was 8 years old when Doc and Darryl and Gary Carter came the next year, and it was like so I kind of learned to love baseball through that team, and I love Doc, and so yeah, he was one of my favorite players growing up, and then here I was 20 years later, I guess, sitting in a room at this prison with him, and they gave me a panic button to hit if he attacked me. So it was surreal. It was like, yeah, I'm like, he's Doc Gooden. He's gonna be Doc Gooden. And it was a great interview. He was really honest with me, and it was a big story for me. It was and it was and I remain, I talked to Doc for a while. I would send him. He asked me like send him stuff to in prison. I would send him some stuff, and I have letters from him from prison, and I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm very happy to see that he had that day. He was if you followed the Mets in the '80s, it didn't get bigger than Doc Gooden.
Yeah, he is, you'll attest, I'll attest from my times.
Great
I've
guy.
been around him in the stadium. He's a good guy. There is no need, prison, non-prison, for a panic button around Doc Gooden. He's battled his demons. He's done many things wrong, but he's a great guy, and he deserved this, and he's been waiting for this. He even said in the speech, like, he tried to come back, and the Wilpon said, no,
Yeah.
there's clearly a bad relationship there, but the Cohens have got things right, and they're honoring their heroes, and Darryl will be next on, I believe it was June 1st. We'll get his number retired in the Raptors, and both of them are very long overdue. So that's one of your that and what he showed up at Andy Pettit's house or something in Houston. Those got to be two of your
And
wilder.
Beltran's house in Puerto Rico. Yeah, those are a few of the highlights of my career.
That's got to be up in the Mount Rushmore of Kaz stories in New
Yeah.
York Post history.
Yeah.
What prison was it? Was it in New York? Was it
I was in
Rikers?
Gainesville, Florida.
Gainesville, Florida. All right, you got a nice little vacation out of it. Stop in prison, hit the beach after. Maybe see Florida Gators campus. But yeah, shout out to Doc for getting in. All right, that's enough out of us. We'll close this episode of Gangs All here next. All right, great stuff there. Good to be back chatting with Kaz. Listen, I know it's been a while. We've missed a lot, but that is out of my control. So, but we're here now, and that's all that matters. We're here for a pre-draft show, and great stuff. And Doc Gooden stuff is great. A tremendous guy, and everyone battles something in their life. He battled his demons, and he's doing well now, and that's what matters. And glad for Doc to get his number retired. And we're going to retire this episode. I believe it's 178. If not, maybe it's 179, but we'll say it's 178. Gangs All Here, our Jets podcast from the New York Post. Thanks to our intern, Dan Shalom, for helping me in producing the show. You can watch us on that New York Post Sports YouTube page. Click subscribe. Give us that thumbs up. Make sure you thumbs up below. Share it with your friends, your family. Tell them to listen to Gangs All Here. And comment. Go in the comments right now. Spam the comments and tell us your pick. Who will the Jets take at number 10? I'm taking Brock Bowers because the last successful first-round tight end the Jets took with Dustin Keller, and Dustin Keller wasn't a star, but he was part of some fun Jets teams and the last Jets teams to make the playoffs. So Keller picked playoffs. Bowers picked. That means we're going to the playoffs. Jets don't go to the playoffs this year. It's a disgrace. And Rodgers got hurt. That's the only way. If Rodgers is healthy all year, or at least 90% of the year, the Jets are a playoff team. And there's absolutely no doubt about it. But let us know in the comments who you pick. And if you're an audio person, you're listening on a commute, you can listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating. Write in a nice review. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Brown Radio. While you're here, if you're on YouTube, go subscribe to my YouTube, youtube.com/at Jake Brown Radio as well. Check out what I'm doing over there. Appreciate that. And make sure you follow Kaz at Brian Kaz on Twitter. For Brian Costello, I am Jake Brown. We will be back next Monday, folks. We'll have 2 episodes in a week. It's like Christmas for Gangs All Here fans. Monday, April 29th. We'll record likely that morning. Show should drop sometime early afternoon, Monday the 29th. Stay tuned for that. Go Jets in the draft. Let's go Knicks. New York forever. Let's go Rangers. Let's go Mets. The vibes are immaculate in New York sports, and the vibes are immaculate on the Gangs All Here podcast. We'll catch you after the draft next Monday.